Good morning and a warm welcome to our webinar on the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. It's a pleasure for me that we have today another edition of our series on the EBRD. Today we will be focusing on Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, more specifically on the sectors of manufacturing and services, energy, as well as agribusiness. Before introducing the moderator of the webinar of today, I have some housekeeping notes. So we will have a Q&A at the end. So after all the presentations, so please write down your questions should they arise during the presentations. We will collect all of the questions and then post them in chronological order at the end. You don't have to worry about the presentations. They will be shared afterwards with all of the participants. And the same also applies to the contact details of the speakers. For your information as well, we are recording our today's webinar, and our webinar will be posted on our YouTube channel, Außenwirtschaft Austria YouTube, where you can find this webinar, but also many other webinars on different topics and also on countries, and where you can also rewatch entire events that have taken place. For example, the Africa Day that took place at the beginning of January this year. So, yeah, with no further ado, let me introduce you to Aymana Kelly. She is the principal at the Department for Business Development at the EBRD, and she will be moderating today's webinar. Aymana, over to you.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to this third webinar that we are organizing with VKO. We're very pleased with our growing cooperation. We have a very packed agenda today, so let me briefly outline the program. In a minute, I will hand over to Claudia Kobler, who is this morning representing EBRD Board Office for Austria. We will then move on to the economic overview and outlook in Central Asia, and specifically Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. We're very lucky that we have today with us both heads and directors for Kazakhstan. This is Hussein Ojan and Andy Aranitasi, who is the head for Uzbekistan. They will briefly speak for about 5-7 minutes. Then this would be followed by our three sector-specific presentations. Focusing on manufacturing and services. This presentation would be delivered to you by Sebastian Skupian, Associate Director and Senior Banker, and Pil Sidikov, who is a Principal Banker in, I believe, based in Almaty. We will then hear from Konstantin Kostikov, Associate Director, Senior Banker, and Andrei Krasutsky, also Associate Director, Senior Banker, who are both representing agribusiness sector. And the last one, but obviously not the least, is a presentation on our activities in the energy sector, presented to you by Yerlan Ramazanov, who is regional head energy for that region, and Veronika Krakovic, who is also regional head for energy. As Isabel mentioned, we will then have around 20 minutes, depending how we manage with the time, 20 minutes for questions and answers. I will encourage you to possibly type in your questions now, and we will get to them in due course. And now, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Claudia Kobler. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Aymana, for the introduction. Thanks a lot to the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber of Commerce for organizing this webinar, and thank you to the business development team and also the two heads from Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan who are joining us today. Aymana briefly introduced me. My name is Claudia Körbler. I am the Austrian advisor to the Austrian Executive Director here at the EBRD, and I will just give you a brief overview today of what the EBRD is all about. We'll we'll briefly speak about the history of the EBRD, give you some of an idea of what the EBRD shareholding structure looks like, what other countries, both donor and recipient countries are, and then I will close off because I know many of your companies are interested in really hearing from the people on the ground and how you're able to procure successful tenders and or do business with the EBRD. With this being said, I would like to ask Eva for the next slide, please. So briefly, what we do, who we are, to give you some of a history of the EBRD. So the EBRD was established to help build a new post-Cold War era in Central and Eastern Europe. And we can say that it since then has played quite a historic role and gained quite unique experience in fostering change in the region and beyond. You might think about how this idea of creating and establishing a European Development Bank came about, since we have global and international development banks like the World Bank Group and others. It came about in 1989, so during the time when the fall of the communism in the East came about. And the idea was ignited and or born by the French President Mitterrand back then, who told with the idea in 89 to build a European Development Bank and didn't necessarily know where and how. So after discussions with, and you might think, why is London the right place for a European Development Bank? After discussions with the UK authorities, the EBRD opened up its gates in 1991 in back then our old location in Liverpool Street. Looking a bit of the list of the participants, I think some of you might have visited us for either specific summits like the Western Balkan Investment Summits and or others in our old location in Liverpool. We actually since then have moved in Canary Wharf, just as it does justice to a bank. We are currently in the heart of other financial institutions based here in London. The Austrian constituency office. So the way, like any other bank, we have a shareholding structure and we have a board that has somewhat of a governance and overarching, I don't want to say control function and or oversight of what some of the projects and the implementation are doing. So the Austrian constituency office actually does not only consist of Austria as a country, it consists of 6 countries altogether. And these countries are Austria, Israel, Cyprus, Malta, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and also Kazakhstan. So Kazakhstan is one of the countries that we represent in our constituency office as well. Our office is made up by a permanent Austrian executive director, a permanent Austrian advisor like myself, an Israel alternate director, and a support staff we have in our office here today as well. Next slide, please. I'm just briefly, I can see the chats coming in. So let me just see if I can see the slides. So Austria and the EBRD at a glance. Austria has actually been somewhat of a founding shareholder, jokingly saying, since 1992 and has made available more than 140 million in donor funds back then. We have a 2.28 capital share. And to give you somewhat of a benchmarking and an idea of what the significance of this capital share is, if you look at the biggest shareholders, it would be the US at about 10.1%. And then you have other G7 countries following, like Germany, UK, and France, and Japan at 8.6%. And all of the European countries plus the European Union make up a shareholding voting power of about 50.4%. So with regards to the Austria EBRD investments, at the end of December of 2023, we've been invested since 1992 up until then, 29.53 billion. And EBRD finance accounted for about 80.75 billion. And Austria investment accounting out of such at about 10.78 billion. So every country has a specific and or specific priority regions that we're kind of focusing on investing in, and also have previously done through our old Austrian trust fund and current existing trust funds as well. And this will be the Western Balkan and Eastern Europe regions, which we consider to be our main priorities, not only for Austria and its proximities to its neighboring countries, but also because this has been a since then historically grown priority region as well. Eva, next slide, please. So I briefly mentioned the EBRD shareholding structure, but I thought it was quite nicely done by the business development department, the flow chart they had with regards to how their shareholding structure kind of breaks down. As mentioned, the EBRD recipient countries and the European Union make up 50.4%, USA being the biggest shareholder, and then followed by the other G7 countries, which are somewhere in the realm of 88.6%. Again, the EBRD was established in 91, and something which might be interesting right now, because I know during the last webinar, we had 71 countries plus 2 institutions. It now has grown to be 72 countries, plus the European Union as an institution, plus the European Investment Bank that is part of the shareholding structure as well. The 72nd country, which has joined the EBRD, was shortly before our capital increase discussion and our capital increase vote in November 2023, and this country is namely Iraq. I remember from the last webinar, the question also came about how it stands with regards to the expansion of sub-Saharan Africa and Iraq. So we have 6 countries in sub-Saharan Africa plus Iraq that back then governors decided would be our future recipient countries as well, so our countries of operations. And these countries are Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Kenya, plus Iraq. And it is the idea that EBRD will go ahead up until 2025 to establish offices within these countries, and between 2025 and 2030 then start operations. So probably something interesting for all those of you who probably attended the Africa Day at the end of January, as Isabel mentioned at the WKÖ as well, and or have interest in sub-Saharan Africa and Iraq. So talking about capital base, EBRD has had a capital base of 30 billion, and back then in November 2023, governors approved a paid-in capital increase by 4 billion. So that brings our capital base to about 34 billion and will come into effect at the end of 2024. The reason why I'm mentioning this is this capital increase was solely due to the fact that EBRD can continue to invest in Ukraine at the level it has been doing since the beginning of the Russian invasion to Ukraine and then war. To give you some figures of what the EBRD has done in Ukraine, I know this is not the focus of this webinar right now, but might be of just quick interest, as EBRD has invested up to 3 billion in Ukraine, out of which 1.7 billion were mobilized from donor funding, and about 200 million have been mobilized from partner financial institutions, really focusing on supporting the country in the real economy, and EBRD will continue to do so in the reconstruction phase as well. We have a standing like any bank, and our AAA rating remains and continue to remain even with our activities in Ukraine. Next slide, please. I think I'm up to 5 minutes right now. I am conscious of the time, so I'm trying to speed this up a bit. Maybe if you want to pull up the EBRD top 10 investee countries in 2023, fantastic. So for those of you who are thinking of maybe expanding and or looking at tenders in other countries as well, just a brief overview of what some of the 10 top investees countries are. So we have Turkey, we have Ukraine, Poland, Egypt, and then Uzbekistan, which is the country focused during this webinar today, at place 6 with about 702 million of investments in 2023. To give you a brief overview since 2017 till 2023 of what our ABI conversions look like. So ABI would be Geschäftsvolumen in German. So it's basically what you make in a year, so to speak. And we had in 2023 a record profit of 13.2 billion of investments, which then brings it up to a 191.2 billion of investments via the EBRD since 1991. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have here a brief map, thought which might be interesting for you as well, of in which countries the EBRD is investing in. So it is 38 countries altogether. And you can see some countries, I cannot see it on the slide right here, but I have it printed out, that I have a suspension button on it. So basically EBRD has not done investments in Belarus and Russia since 2014, since the annexion fights of Crimea. So we have stopped operations there, same as the case since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine. And we did have countries, we did have one country in particular, the Czech Republic, which was already considered graduation country, which means graduated out of the EBRD program, did not have a need for any further investments up until the COVID era in 2021, when the Czech Republic was taken on board to be another country of investment as well. So maybe just for you, as you're getting the slides, this is a bit of an overview of where we're doing business, and she'll hopefully give you a chance to look at what some other areas of expansion and investment would be as well. Next slide, please. So I spoke about what are some of the Austrian thematic priorities. So namely, what are the trust funds that we currently have at the EBRD? And that will be first the HIPCA Trust Fund, which is a high impact partnership on climate action. And it's a multi-donor trust fund with specific, with other specific donors. And it is a multi-donor partnership that really tackles climate change and environmental degradation. And then we have the EBRD Ukraine Stabilism and Sustainable Growth Multi-Donor Account, the Ukraine MDA. And the UMDA was established to support Ukraine's efforts to reform its economy, improve its businesses, climate, and restore sustainable growth, along with really trying to help the country in the EU accession and or to help build up a more stable governance structure as well. Looking at the list of participants of the companies, I think some of you are familiar with the EBRD already, have done business, potentially also through our old Austrian tied trust funds, which we do not have anymore, which were specifically open for Austrian companies who wanted to win tenders in specific regions. So those are the two current trust funds that we have. And if any kind of tenders are opening up through these trust funds, you can find them on the e-procurement portal. Next slide, please. So thinking about just looking at, and thank you for the Business Development Department for providing this information, looking at some of the Austrian companies that are investing in Armenia. It's actually only one Austrian company with the EBRD that's currently has a tender and or project in Armenia. We want to draw your attention to the upcoming 2024 annual meeting and business forum, which will take place in May in Yerevan. And in the course of this annual meeting, there's always a business forum where we invite companies to come and connect with players on the ground, connect with people from the EBRD, to not only try to establish relationships and or to try to understand what investment opportunities and or tendering opportunities in these regions are as well. So we just put the slide up, and I know at the end of all of the presentations, there is also a link on where you as a company will be able to register for the annual meetings in Yerevan as well. Next slide, please, and I believe this finishes it off. Yes, so again, if anyone would have any questions, my name is Claudia Körbler. You can reach me at the email address and or phone number. And I hope this was able to give you a brief overview of what the EBRD is all about. And I'm handing over to Imana right now because I know the real interesting people for the companies are going to speak shortly. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Claudia, for this very detailed overview of EBRD and Austria engagement. Now I would like to hand over to Hussein. Hussein, over to you.
Thank you very much. Since we have the sector representatives, senior bankers, I will not be talking too much, but it's an honor and pleasure to be here presenting you with our, maybe a deep dive on Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Now I will continue from where Claudia left off, EBRD operations in Kazakhstan. And then we can start with that, and then I would like to give you a brief overview of what Kazakhstan is currently thinking about their priorities. That is in terms of both the political developments, the recent developments, and the economic reform priorities, which will give you a better idea. And then I will combine at the end quickly with EBRD activities as well. Look, EBRD has been operating in Kazakhstan since 1993, and then it is one of the largest countries of operations. We're being represented here with 2 main offices and 5 satellite offices with about 100 people on the ground. And since 1993, we have invested about 10 billion euros in about 320 projects. Our main focus has been in Kazakhstan in terms of the portfolio composition has been mostly on the sustainable infrastructure side, followed by energy, and a big chunk also goes to our corporates business, which is consisting of manufacturing and services, agribusiness, and natural resources. And then FI is the last financial institutions is the relatively smaller side. Now, our focus in Kazakhstan in terms of strategic priorities are, first of all, decarbonization of the economy, and obviously green economy transition, which is the renewable energy. Yerlan will be able to talk more about it later on. transport infrastructure and municipal services, especially given the current geopolitical conditions. Trans-Caspian corridor, also called as the Middle Corridor, is very important in this. And of course, private sector development with small and medium enterprises, support to them, with a focus on diversification of the economy itself and digitalization. We have been also working quite closely with the authorities on policy engagement, where in the areas of capital market development, also the entire decarbonization of the Kazakh economy, with the long-term strategies, with low carbon pathways, with also Kazakhstan joining the Global Methane Pledge very recently. These are important areas. And finally, on the areas of infrastructure, commercialization of infrastructure through PPPs as well. Now, let me give you a little bit of what has been happening in Kazakhstan. Recently, there has been, I would like to say that the political arena has been quite on overdrive. On February 6th, the Kazakh Majlis voted to approve a new prime minister. And there was a big shift in the cabinet as well. A number of ministers has changed. And then on the 7th, there was a big
I'm sorry, Hussein. I think your sound has deteriorated slightly.
Okay, how is this? Is it better now?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay, all right, very good. So I will speak closer to the microphone. With this new, with the appointment of the new government and the new cabinet of ministers, there's going to be the new or renewed reform agenda. And it will focus on the following priorities, which could give the direction for you on potential upcoming investments in the country, as well as the potential upcoming focus areas of Kazakhstan. So first of all, it's going to be the fiscal policies. Obviously, the new tax code and the new budget code is going to be introduced. And then a new investment cycle with a focus on diversification of economy, moving away from basically the big natural resources of oil and coal. And then there will be a reform on the public procurement system with a focus on PPPs, PPP regulations, and on the construction industry, particularly. The construction materials is going to be in the focus, and liberalization of the economy is gaining again quite a bit of traction, and this is linked with the privatizations as well. Again, earlier this year in later March, late February, EBRD also participated in the IPO of Air Astana, which is the national flag carrier of Kazakhstan. It was a successful IPO where 30% of the company was basically de facto privatized, and EBRD also took a chunk of that. We are expected to see more of these coming in the new era. And there's going to be the new impetus on the industrial development. And this where we can see that IFIs, the relations with the IFIs are going to increase. And then next item is actually the development of the agro-industrial and rational use of water resources. Water is very scarce in entire Central Asia, but also particularly for Kazakhstan, for a large country like Kazakhstan. And there's going to be big focus on water projects, both on the clean water side as well as on the wastewater modernization, and especially on the agribusiness as well. So there will be also quite a bit of funds that will be provided. And then this will be complemented by the acceleration of the modernization of the utility and energy sector. This is also on the back of supporting the renewables, where there will be a lot of investments on the transmission side, and to support the renewable energy investments as part of the decarbonization strategy and support of the renewable investments. And then the last two focuses will be, one of them is going to be the country's transport and logistics potential. Again, this has gained quite a bit of traction with the current geopolitical setting. The connection of China to Europe through Trans-Caspian corridor, and EBRD has done a big study on it last year, which also indicates that there are quite a lot of opportunities. There are identified 34 projects, which is about 17 billion euros that will take place in entire Central Asia, and half of it is going to be in Kazakhstan. And then digitalization is the last one, where the Kazakh government will be looking into how to facilitate further digitalization across the government services and the use of artificial intelligence technologies as well. So given this government priorities and the EBRD's structure and support in the economy, there are going to be a number of new opportunities. And as Claudia also indicated in her initial explanation of EBRD business setup, we are here to support also foreign investors. I'm also a part of the Foreign Investors Council. I'm actually the deputy chairman of the Foreign Investors Council here in Kazakhstan. So we're looking forward to any potential opportunities for you to come in. And then my colleagues, the senior bankers across the sectors, will delve and will dive into the details across the sectors. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hussein. I think you've outlined significant number of opportunities, and I think specifically construction materials sector could be very interesting to Austrian companies, because we know that expertise in Austria for that is very strong. Now I would like to invite Andy Ranitasi, the head of Uzbekistan, to share his perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Aymana. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on the location. I am the country director for Uzbekistan for EBRD. I've been in the country only for 6 months, or relatively new. However, EBRD in the country is old, so we've been around in Uzbekistan also since 1993. But we have picked up our engagement in the country substantially since 2017, because we note the quick pace of development and the potential the country has ever since. In fact, most of our overall volume business in the country of about 4.5 billion euros has been done in this last 6-7 years. Uzbekistan itself is a very interesting country with huge potential. It continues to grow at a pace of about 6.5% a year. And it is constrained simply at this stage by the stage of development of its infrastructure. This is something that basically the authorities have been very cautious on. So over the last 6-7 years, they have started to engage in a series of reforms that have opened up, I think, big opportunities for investments. What are these? So in the first stage of reforms, as Uzbekistan called it, it was mostly basic liberalization of sectors and preparation of legislation for the further step of reforms. This has included a new privatization law, which was approved very recently with support actually from EBRD, new electricity market law, unbundling of the state monopoly in the energy sector, etc., etc. It has started also the privatization of state-owned enterprises, because at the moment, state still accounts for more than 50% of the GDP in the country. And it privatized its first bank last year. This was actually Central European investor who bought the bank. It was the OTP Group, and it was the 5th largest bank in the country. With support from EBRD and other IFIs, now the authorities are looking to privatize number 2 and number 4. I stress this moment because it is very symbolic of the effort that's being done to liberalize the economy. And once those privatizations are complete, there will be a total tectonic shift in the banking sector in the country, going from about 80% state-owned that it was less than 2 years ago to majority private-owned. However, the authorities basically have started also other reforms in the context of supporting small businesses, streamlining tax system, tax administration, and tax procedures. They have started now to establish finally independent market regulators to effectively regulate natural monopolies, and this will include sectors like civil aviation, natural gas, railway, telecommunication, and power sector. In this respect, the company is continuing to develop, is trying to actually accede to the World Trade Organization at the moment, and also has come up with a strategy which is very important as to what it aims to achieve by 2030. This encompasses about 125 objectives for the country over the next 7 years, including almost doubling the GDP to $160 billion, attracting more than $110 billion of foreign direct investment, at least 30 billion of which the ambition is to public-private partnerships, to increase energy efficiency, to boost the country's transit potential, to improve social welfare, to fully digitize government services, and especially to preserve water resources, because like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan also suffers from large scarcity of water. Crucially and most important, the strategy of Uzbekistan emphasizes the green economy transition as the country aims to increase the share of renewables to 40% of total consumption, up from the previous target of 25% only 1 year ago. In this respect, especially for those interested in the energy sector, and I'm sure Veronica will describe this to you in a lot more detail. Uzbekistan is a poster child for development. Over the last year alone, it has tripled its declared target for renewables from 8 gigawatt to 25 by 2030. In this respect, what the Uzbek government is trying to do is quite actually in line with the EBRD strategic priorities for Uzbekistan, which are supporting decarbonization, water efficiency, and clean energy, better governance, business climate, and transport connectivity, and also the development of private sector and fostering of employment, skills, inclusion, and digital transformation. As a result of this, at the moment, EBRD in Uzbekistan has a portfolio of about 2.5 billion euros outstanding, of which half is in the energy sector, and the remainder is split more or less evenly between infrastructure, financial institutions, and corporates. It is basically a country that, again, I stress, has huge potential. We forecasted 6% growth in 2023. That's what the country achieved, and we were, I think, the only ones to be so bullish on Uzbekistan. I don't think even the Uzbek authorities forecasted 6% growth. We do forecast 6.5 for next year. And from our perspective, it is a good country to be in. It is now about to enter the, let's say, the more difficult stage of reforms. This has to do basically with issues like on top of privatization of banks and main state-owned enterprises, but also moments of tariff rebalancing in the water sector, in the energy sector. So the more painful part of reforms, which the country has to do constantly in order to balance cost recovery on one side and affordability on the other side. But it is absolutely a country that is developing very fast. We're very proud of our renewables franchise in the country, which Veronica will describe. We're very proud of what we have achieved in the banking sector so far. And we're also supporting the government in the development of public-private partnerships. The PPP law in the country was prepared with EBRD support. And at the moment, we are supporting PPPs in the road sector, in dormitories, in schools, so in the social infrastructure side, for more than 3 billion euros, especially the road sector, I presume might be of interest to Austrian companies. At the moment, we're expecting in the next few months to bring to the market the first motorway PPP in the country, from Tashkent to the famous city of Samarkand, which will be probably in the ballpark of $2 to $2.5 billion, so quite a big contract. I will leave it here because I'm sure my colleagues will delve much more into the detail of what business is doing in the country, and look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. Indeed, I think people who did come to our annual meeting in Samarkand have witnessed themselves the accelerated pace that Uzbekistan has essentially burst into the international arena. So now we are down to sort of a more in-depth look into the sectors that you have gathered today to learn more. So the first one will be manufacturing and services sector, and I would like to hand over to Sebastian to kick that off. Thank you.
Hi everyone. My name is Sebastian Skupin. I'm sector banker for the manufacturing and service sector based in Tashkent for the last couple of years. So I will give you a brief overview first of the M&S sector in general, globally what we do at the bank, and then what we do in Uzbekistan, and then my colleague Phil from Kazakhstan will continue with our activities in Kazakhstan. Next slide, please. So, as you have heard before, the bank invests around 12 billion euros every year across all our countries of operation, and this is basically across three main pillars. So the first one is we work with financial institutions. Second, we do projects in sustainable infrastructure, and the third one is we work with the private corporate sector. So within the corporate sector, there are several sub teams, and so I'm representing the manufacturing and services team, and then there is agribusiness team and a few others. And within manufacturing and services, in short, M&S, you from the slide here, you see that we do around 900 million to 1 billion euros of investments every year across all our countries of operations, and this is split across 50 to 60 projects on an annual basis. Next slide, please. The M&S sector consists of quite a broad range of subsectors, as you can see from the right-hand pie chart. So as you see, it includes automotive, chemicals, building materials, pharmaceuticals, metal manufacturing, and others. And from the left-hand side, you see that we are active across all our regions, all our countries, with naturally some of the largest projects being done in Central Eastern Europe and Turkey. However, Central Asia, even though in terms of volume is maybe on a comparative basis not that large, but in terms of number of projects, it is quite an active sector for us, as you will see further in our presentation. Next slide, please. This is to show you an overview of few of our clients that we work with across in M&S across our countries of operation. So you see these are very well-known brands and established companies and usually leaders in their respective sectors. I would like to highlight here that we work actively with Austrian companies in our countries of operations. To give you a few names, we have done projects with Austrian companies such as Wienerberger, Kronospan, Gebauer Griller, or Gebrüder Weiss. Next slide, please. This is about green economic transition, which has been mentioned before. So being a major development bank already many years ago, we have started to increasingly focus on green projects. And these are in principle projects that support the economies of our countries in their green transition. The main goal is basically to decarbonize and to reduce the CO2 emissions of the companies that are active in the various sectors. So how do we do that in our projects? Usually we identify and support investments that, for example, improve resource or energy efficiency, that employ best available technologies, that apply circular economy approaches where possible. In certain cases, we also help companies or even entire sectors to develop low carbon pathways and strategies to reduce the carbon footprint. Good example of this is in fact something that we have done in Uzbekistan quite recently, where we have developed a low carbon pathway for the chemical industry jointly with the Uzbek chemical holding in the country. Overall, the M&S sector, so in our sector, we have a target that at least 50% of our projects shall be classified as green. And as you see on the slide here, we have been quite successful in meeting the target over the last few years. Next slide, please. And next one. So, what do we do in Uzbekistan specifically? I would say there is not that much difference as we do in other countries. I think we have been quite active in the country and have supported quite a large number of projects with private companies, either local companies or international companies that have invested in Uzbekistan. So we have signed more than 20 projects over the last 2 years. And if we look at the main themes in the projects, I would say that first it was about attracting foreign direct investments, meaning bringing international players to the local market. Second, to support import substitution of products in our projects, which is quite important in this local and growing market in Uzbekistan. We focused quite a lot on modernization of existing facilities in industrial projects and on capacity expansion. And as I have mentioned before, what we are trying to identify is usually investments in green technologies to improve resource efficiency, energy efficiency, which is in line with the country strategy for Uzbekistan and also with our general approach towards green investments. Next slide, please. On this slide, you see a brief overview of a few projects that we have signed in recent years in the M&S sector. The sectors, as you see, have been mainly in pharmaceuticals and chemicals, in retail trade, and in building materials. I want to give you a few more details on 2 projects to give you a bit of better understanding what type of projects we have done here. So the first one is Indorama Coke and Fertilizers. This is on the very right one on the top. So Indorama Corporation is a large international conglomerate, in fact, active in many countries. And the main business is chemicals and also textiles. And in Uzbekistan, they have acquired a very old and obsolete fertilizer production facility a few years ago. And we provided the company in total 27 million of dollars in loans, through which we have financed the modernization of the plant and also the working capital needs of the company. And through the use of the modern equipment.
Sebastian, I'm sorry. I'll have to maybe rush you a little bit because we would also like to give some time to cover activities in Kazakhstan.
This is my last slide. So yeah. So just to finish, through this investments, the plant is today more energy efficient and environment friendly, which is one of our main focuses. So in general, given the large and growing population of almost 38 million people in the country, quite an established industry base across many subsectors, and the growing need to modernize the old plants and equipment, we continue to see many opportunities for the manufacturing and service sector in Uzbekistan. So I will stop here and I will pass to my colleague Phil to provide you some of the activities in Kazakhstan. Thank you.
Sorry, yeah. Thanks, Sebastian. Can you put the next slide, please? Yeah, I wanted to give you a little bit of flavor of how manufacturing and services sectors in Kazakhstan look like. So to give you this information, what we have done, it was recently we've looked into the 500 largest companies, and you could see the list from National Business operating in Kazakhstan, and we have separated which companies are operating in our sector and which ones are operating in different sectors. So out of the 500 largest companies, you would see that 74 companies, only 15% are operating in M&S. Primarily, most of the largest companies in Kazakhstan are are operating in oil and gas and metals and mining sectors. So the economy is very heavily concentrated on natural resources. And for example, if I'm not mistaken, out of the largest 100 companies, we would see probably around 7 companies in M&S. Following that, out of the 74 companies, that's the middle pie, we've looked into which ones have potential to be working with EBRD, which ones cannot be working with EBRD. And out of the 74 companies, 23 actually had integrity issues. And actually, 5 of these companies with integrity issues were the 5 largest companies. Then we have 16 companies with poor financial, meaning that they are probably either over-leveraged or loss-making. There are 9 companies which have green issues, meaning that they are polluting, and there is no decision from the company to decarbonize in any way. And 17 companies which are actually eligible for financing, and 9 which we don't have a lot of information because they are not public. Of course, out of this 500 largest companies, there are several companies which we work with and which are not represented in this list. And the M&S general in Kazakhstan is primarily represented by 4 different sectors, which is retail, pharmaceutical and healthcare, building materials, and chemicals, which actually somewhat replicates what's the sector component, sector representation in Uzbekistan. Next slide, please. Yes, here you can see, despite of the challenges that we face in terms of the integrity, in terms of poor financials, etc., there are a number of companies, including multinationals, that we are working with, and like Borsan Makina, ArcelorMittal, or Vicat, which produces the cement. And we are working with largest local producers like Medservice Plus, Alina, which has been actually recently acquired by Nippon Paint from Japan. Next slide, please. Here I wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor also on what does it mean to work with EBRDs. And there are 2 cases that I will present. One is Borsan Makina for the larger one, and the following one would be the smaller one, which actually gives you a range of different sizes that EBRD is looking into. So Borsan Makina Kazakhstan is the exclusive distributor and they provide maintenance services for Caterpillar heavy machinery equipment. So we have done 4 deals with them for a total of $110 million in different years. For example, the first one, $25 million in 2019, it was a mix of, that was working capital. In 2020, we have provided under the resilience framework, the COVID support loan. In 23 and 24, these are the most notable ones. These are CapEx loans, primarily CapEx loans, whereby we've supported their circular economy because with our investment, they have increased the capacity of their maintenance facility, and we were able to save materials of 500 tons per year and scope 3 emissions of around 700 tons per year. We have provided 2 grants for them. One is these are also quite important grants in my opinion. One is for 50,000 euros. We have, together with the company, we have developed a new mechatronic engineering course with the Karaganda Polytechnic University, University, and this course is being launched as we speak, and it will give around 100 and 250 students per annum to learn on this course and get more hands-on experience into what does it mean to mix different engineering experience. And the second one is the most recent one is 60,000 euros. We have provided to develop together with the company a gender inclusion action plan to promote women's equal economic opportunities. Next slide, please. Yeah, Viva Farm is that's again, I've depicted this to show the different scales of companies that we look into. So Viva Farm is a local manufacturer and distributor of pharmaceutical products. We have provided $2.2 million. It's a CapEx loan. Out of the actual expansion is for $10 million. The plan is to construct and launch a new cancer treatment and immune suppressive medication production. For this, we are providing 50,000 euro grant, and this is to help the company develop antimicrobial resistance capacity. For the transition impact that we're contemplating, that would be the support of the SMEs for this new investment program and the capacity building. Next slide, please.
Peel, sorry, I may need to rush you a little bit.
Yeah, this was the last one. Just wanted to briefly wanted to tell you that Kazakhstan has a lot of incentives for foreign companies and local companies in terms of the investments. For example, they can provide grants in the form of land, equipment, and buildings, 0% tax rate, 0% CIT on imports, 0% CIT for 10 years, 0% VAT, long-term subsidized interest rates, etc., etc. However, according to our experience, the actual implementation of these kind of state support has been very difficult. And in my opinion, that's because of the broken link between the state and the business, which actually, I mean, one of the key areas where EBRD is helping businesses is to build this link between the state and the businesses. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peel. Now let me now introduce our next sort of experts that will be speaking. So Andrei Krasutsky will start that and will give you an overview of our activities in agribusiness and also in Kazakhstan. And then Konstantin Kostikov will follow with focusing on activities in Uzbekistan. Andrei, over to you.
Thank you, Kelly. Yes, we are representing agribusiness team. We are a team of 66 members, and half of us roughly located in regional offices in the fields. Our team usually do annually around 900 million or 1 billion euro projects. In terms of number, it's around 55 projects per year. And in terms of breakdown by sectors, it can be roughly estimated like 30% for primary agriculture, 30% for food retail, 25% is food manufacturing, and the rest is beverage and packaging sector and other subsectors. In terms of regions, Turkey is one of the largest countries of operations for agribusiness, and it accounts for 22-23% of our investments done during the last 4 years. The second one is Ukraine, obviously, given the current geopolitical situation. And the next is Central and Eastern Europe and Southeast Europe, with Central Asia accounting around 10% of agribusiness team investment for the last four years. In Kazakhstan, we do projects and we finance both international companies and local companies. In terms of size, it's from SME sector and large big multinationals. So our team is focusing only on private business, to work with private companies. And in Kazakhstan, our portfolio is 100% is private companies. We don't do poor private project finance and focusing mainly on existing businesses. But at the same time, we can do some greenfield projects if the company can provide a guarantee from existing strong financial partner or existing subsidiary with good financial performance and strong financial position. We provide financing both in dollars and in euro, and also in Kazakhstan we do provide financing in Kazakh tenge, and we also work together with two local commercial banks, Bank Center Credit and Shinhan Bank. We have a program which is called the Risk Sharing Facility. It's available both for our sector, agribusiness, and also for M&S sector, which was presented by Pale, my colleague Pale. And so we can provide financing via these commercial banks, which allows us to speed up the process and decrease requirements for certain requirements for the client. In terms of examples, I can mention such big names like we work in Kazakhstan with Lactalis, which has a local subsidiary called Foodmaster, and we provided a loan back in 2016, which the company managed to pay early before payment date because of good financial results. We also work with such international company like Ulker, but at the same time we also work with local companies. For example, last year in December we signed a project with one of the largest crop producers in Kazakhstan, Atomic Agro, and small and medium businesses as well. And probably I will stay here and let my colleague Konstantin to continue on Uzbekistan. Thank you.
Dear participants, it's an honor for me to be here and present you on activities of EBRD in consumer sector in Uzbekistan. We in our sector work through the entire value chain from farm to fork, from agri inputs such as seeds and fertilizers to production, processing, and further to food retail and food service. We have restaurants chains also amongst our clients. Uzbekistan is a promising market for us, especially in consumer sector, thanks to its large and growing population, and many opportunities for import substitution or using Uzbekistan as a production base for export to the neighboring countries. It is also high on the government's reform agenda, food security topic, and the government is also working on attracting FDI from bringing expertise to the countries, facilitating building industrial parks and special economic zones with tax benefits for the new investors to motivate them to start production in the country. And Uzbekistan is known for its good climate, long season, opportunity to rotate crops within 1 year, within 1 season. And it places it well in the food, fruits and vegetable supply chain and value chain. There are obviously challenges, but they can be addressed. The most significant probably is that the region is known for water stress, and therefore it requires wise use of precious water and investment in irrigation. We see many opportunities in B2B food ingredients production, and this we believe will be win-win cooperation benefiting both parties. Uzbekistan needs technologies of Austrian companies in food production, processing, and hygiene standards, and offering large market and opportunities to diversify supply chain. And in terms of instruments, similarly to Kazakhstan, we have direct lending, which probably may be the most interesting opportunity, given that we can lend on the back of Austrian corporate guarantees, which is less common for the local banks in Uzbekistan due to constraints placed by National Bank. And probably we can be in this sense additional to your house banks in Austria. For many of them, Uzbekistan is unknown territory, and they may be less comfortable in lending for the new projects in this geography. We work with 3 local banks in Uzbekistan under risk-sharing programs. These are typically for the loan tickets between 1 and 3 million. These are IPAC Yuli Bank, Hamkor Bank, and Uzpromstroy Bank. Working with these banks also allows us to access to local currency loans, and our clients can benefit from this. We also invest in equity. We have largest food retail chain Korzinka in our portfolio. But from what we see in many subsectors, the market is very fragmented. Still, modern food retail accounts for less than 10% of the overall food retail market. So there is still growth opportunities, and in all the sectors, there is a opportunity for consolidation. The market is very fragmented. Uzbekistan already attracted some big FDI names like OTP, Hungarian banking group mentioned by Andy, Indorama from Singapore mentioned by Sebastian, Lactalis present in the country as well. But still, even with these big names, dairy industry is very fragmented, and there are opportunities which we see. I will probably stop here. Probably last point to mention that after COVID, there is also significant growth recovery in tourism sector, and for us, this produce opportunity to basically feed all these millions of people coming to the country, and also for development of food service restaurant chains, and we have few already in our portfolio. With this, I will pass the floor to my colleague Yerlan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Konstantin. And yeah, just to repeat how honored and privileged I am to present to you today. Yeah, I'm representing Kazakhstan. My name is Yerlan Ramazanov. I'm regional head for energy based in Astana in Kazakhstan. So while I'm really glad to present you on the screen and being on the screen today, but probably more important that I would also be more and happier and to host you and to meet you on the ground. Shall you be visiting the region to meet your business partners here in Kazakhstan or the wider Central Asia region. From our side, I think that my presentation would also appear on the screen. Yes, it is on the screen, and probably if we move into the next slide. So first of all, I would like to say that in December 23, the board of directors of EBRD has approved a new energy strategy of the bank, where the key slogan there is that EBRD will be supporting to ensure installation of renewable energy from growing from megawatts to gigawatts. So this is for us the key goal, to enhance penetration of renewables, to increase the share of renewables in the energy sector in EBRD countries of operation. And at the same time, what is equally important, in order to ensure integration of this renewable energy capacity, definitely we have to also invest into the grid in order to ensure this connection of this capacity. This slide is just like a few data points with regards to Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan, yes, it's large from east to west. It's slightly less than 3,000 kilometers. So 100 or 500 kilometers, it's not a big distance relatively. But at the same time, I think that's just to mention the most worrying and what disappoints personally me, for example, is the first graph, where you can see that 70% of the power generation is still coal generation in Kazakhstan. And from that perspective, I think that this is very important to ensure investments in the renewables and investments into the grid to absorb this renewable energy capacity. Equally important at these points of time for the energy sector of Kazakhstan is to balance the intermittent nature of the renewables. So investments in the battery storage, in the hydro capacity, in order to ensure that the grid and the system is stable and secure and can ensure to cover demand for the energy, for the electricity at any time. This is the primary goal. And from that perspective, this is the key area of focus also for us as EBRD, who is actually the largest investor in the country in the renewables. And we have been a part of the wider, we call it policy engagement, policy dialogue with the authorities, with the government in Kazakhstan, promoting green transition. To be honest, just probably one of the facts is that EBRD actually was one of the first institutions which was discussing and effectively based on this engagement. The first mention of renewable energy sources was introduced into the regulatory documents in Kazakhstan in early 2000s. And Kazakhstan was the first in the region to start setting the regulatory framework to develop renewable energy projects. And we as EBRD, we were a pioneer institution investing in the renewables at the project finance basis back in 2014. So we have at this point of time 10 years of experience investing in renewable energy projects in the country. And that should say that to date, the experience and it's positive. And probably the most important is that the off-taker pays to the producers of green energy and pays on time, which is probably even equally important. To date, what's built? I mean that in Kazakhstan, the government, due to the intermittency issue and taking into account the major part of the energy sector is represented by quite old coal generating capacity, the strategy was to introduce renewables in small projects, in the small size projects. So therefore, at this point of time in Kazakhstan, there is approximately 140 renewable energy projects implemented with the total capacity of 3 gigawatts. And this is just to show that the average size of the project was relatively small. But at the same time, back in 2023, in May, the Ministry of Energy has approved a new schedule of auctions aiming to award PPA contracts for 6.8 gigawatts of renewable energy during 23-27, and you can see the breakdown between the wind, solar, and hydro potential. And in addition to that, the government is also discussing on the bilateral basis a few larger projects of 1 gigawatt each. Also equally important to know that in Kazakhstan, there is at the early stage, but still it's in the process of development, really big and large green hydrogen project, which is currently being implemented by the German-Swedish company Svewind, which is called HyRasia 1 in the western part of Kazakhstan, aiming to produce approximately 2 million tons of green hydrogen and installing approximately 40 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity in the west. So these are quite big, and probably if we can move to the next slide, I would be able to say a little bit on how EBRD can potentially support and cooperate with the companies contemplating projects, renewable energy projects, in particular this in Kazakhstan. I mean that this is the way how we work. First of all, we engage with the authorities, and for us, for example, at this point of time, we are quite closely engaging in the neighboring Kyrgyz Republic, in Tajikistan, also supporting the governments in order to establish enabling regulatory framework to ensure that bankable renewable energy projects can be implemented in the countries. From our side, at the end of the day, we are a bank. We are providing financing, and we would be a really bad bank if we would not be able to support green energy projects. So therefore, for us, it is the primary focus, just to repeat. And we are ready for us, the bread and butter, it's provide the debt financing. We can do it on the corporate basis, but the key priority, and I think that the most part of our day is spent in order to approve, to prepare project based on the project finance, non-recourse basis. Definitely we can do a bit of equity, but still relatively smaller size. We can do the frameworks, bigger frameworks, and probably here in Kazakhstan, it was another showcase where we have already the second phase of the Kazakhstan renewables framework. At this point of time, it's for $500 million supporting renewable energy projects and grid enhancement projects in the country. And so we are closely working also on the PPAs, grid absorption, the regulatory framework, etc. And also colleagues from MNS, they also mentioned this. The LCP, the low carbon pathways for energy sector, it is quite important, and we have already done. The first one was done in Uzbekistan, and my colleague Veronika Krakovic will probably mention that one. And we also did the same in Kazakhstan. And so what's more important, Kazakhstan has already approved the countrywide long-term decarbonization strategy aiming to achieve net zero by 2060. This strategy has already been approved and currently being implemented by the government. And if we switch into the next slide, which is the last one, for me, it is just to showcase a few projects we financed in Kazakhstan. Probably the most important is that we have already invested of EBRD money, of EBRD funds for more than $500 million in the country. So the key message probably here is that we know how the sector operates, we know challenges companies face here, and we know how to deal with them being as financing institutions. So therefore, for us, we know and we have this experience how to structure this type of projects, how to support our clients, how to work with, and how to ensure the most important, that the project is successfully implemented and operated in the country, and therefore establishing the required contractual base, etc., around. I will probably stop here and pass the floor to Veronika, who would be able to share even more exciting numbers for Uzbekistan.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yerlan. Veronika, if I could ask you to maybe stick to about 5-6 minutes, as we have quite a few questions, and I'd like to have a chance to actually put them to the panelists. Thank you.
Sure. No, thank you very much, Yerlan. So moving to Uzbekistan, Amana will, yeah. So in Uzbekistan, EBRD is a large financier of renewable energy projects. To date, we have financed 2.7 gigawatt of solar and wind capacity. And this is coupled with financing of modern and flexible CCGT capacity. So overall, since the year 2018, EBRD financed 5 gigawatt of power generation capacity. We also finance transmission interconnections in Uzbekistan. So we financed 3 transmission lines and 1 substation. Uzbekistan is a really booming market in terms of renewable energy projects. They started developing it in 2019. By now they have 600 megawatt of renewables capacity operational, quite an amount of renewables capacity under construction. The overall objective that the government has announced last year is to achieve the goal of 25 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity by 2030. The country has quite a bankable offering for renewable energy. It's a long-term PPA, 25 years from COD, and there is a sovereign backing for the off-taker obligations. The regulatory setup for renewables is quite attractive, and the market has seen very large developers and very prominent and experienced developers entering the market. So on the slide, you can see the projects that EBRD financed. It's a combination of projects with private developers, with the public sector utilities, which include National Electric Grid of Uzbekistan and thermal power plants company, which manages the thermal power plants in Uzbekistan. Also, we are doing extensive policy work in Uzbekistan. EBRD was, as Yerlan has mentioned, with EBRD support, the country has developed low carbon pathway for the power sector in Uzbekistan, and Uzbekistan was the first country of EBRD's operations to develop such pathway. And it shows how the sector can achieve carbon neutrality by the year 2050. We are closely engaging with the government on auctions, on wind auctions. EBRD is supporting up to 2 gigawatt of wind auctions in Uzbekistan, out of which the auctions for 300 megawatt wind capacity plus storage have already been awarded. We are also supporting Uzbekistan with drafting of an electricity law, with drafting of a regulator, and with drafting of a regulator law. Uzbekistan is quite developing market in terms of new technologies. So they are currently introducing storages to all renewables projects, and they launched development of the very first hydrogen project. So hydrogen in Uzbekistan will be the very first hydrogen power plant, green hydrogen power plant in Central Asia. In terms of EBRD support, I think Ilan has summarized it very well, and it's applicable to both Kazakhstan and also Uzbekistan. So we can do senior loans on a project finance basis, and this is mostly how we financed the renewables projects. In renewables projects, we also offered VAT facilities and sometimes revolver VAT facilities, essentially to support VAT refund during construction. This is mostly it on Uzbekistan, and I will be very, very happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Veronica, for this very concise insight into the energy sector in Uzbekistan. We have a number of questions from the audience. So I would like to start with the first question. As for the investments in decarbonization and green energy in Kazakhstan, how does the EBRD make sure that this initiative is not supporting Chinese suppliers? If I can maybe put that forward to Hussein and Yerlan.
Sure, thank you very much. Green and decarbonization is one of the pillars for our strategies in Kazakhstan and in many countries of operations. And our projects are carried out as per the EBRD procurement rules, which is approved by the board of directors, by all shareholders, which ensures competitiveness is the key in terms of this. So from this point of view, when you look at the projects, we are carrying out the projects as per the final positive impact to the economies. Therefore, there is no specific targets as to limiting certain suppliers and limiting the other suppliers, etc., unless they are sanctioned entities, or in some cases on the sanctioned lists, on the list that we cannot work with given the compliance matters. From this point of view, each and every project has to abide by EBRD procurement rules, environmental and social due diligence and relevant rules, and all of this has been approved and implemented by our shareholders. So in short, we can answer this. Therefore, if there are Chinese suppliers who are entering into the tenders, as well as all the other suppliers, because it's a competitive process. So depending on the requirements, the pre-qualifications, and the procurement rules. At the end of the day, we're a bank that is rule-based development bank, and we're operating as per the rules and regulations that has been approved by the shareholders of the bank. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Hussein. Let's move on to the second questions we have. Kazakhstan is a hub for bypassing EU sanctions against Russia. What measures are in place to force Kazakhstan to follow the sanctions, or is this not EBRD's responsibility? Again, Hussein.
I will take this question as well, of course, because this is one of the key topics that we are looking in as EBRD in terms of our investments. I would like to underscore again the rule-based and the rule and regulation-based approach that EBRD takes here. Now, first of all, there is a strong point here, which indicates that Kazakhstan is a hub for bypassing EU sanctions. Well, I'm not sure if this is the case, because the last meeting I had with the special sanction envoy of the EU, his name is Ambassador David Sullivan, this wasn't the perspective from the EU side. I think both EU, through the special sanction envoys, and the US, through their sanction specialist envoys, his name is Tim, and also the UK, through their special envoys, they have close collaboration with all Central Asian economies, with Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan to be on the focus. And I can also refer you to the meetings that we had in the US, together with my colleague, director of Uzbekistan as well, earlier this year in Washington, D.C., where we have also consulted with the relevant authorities, including the US Treasury, the State Department, and similarly in Brussels with the counterparties, with DG FISMA, etc. The feedback we get, and certainly this is not EBRD's, EBRD's focus or EBRD's, strategy to implement this, because it is done on a bilateral and multilateral basis between the countries. But the message that we get is that the collaboration is quite high, and there has been a number of actions that are taken, especially on the Kazakhstan side, for tracking of the goods that can be potentially dual-use, dual-purpose goods, and a significant reduction of those has been achieved. So from this point of view, I think it is important to look at it with the relevant numbers and with the relevant, political relations between different parties. And as for EBRD, we have also sanctioned compliance and project compliance rules, which we look into each and every project with quite detail, also taking into account the potential reputational risk it poses. So I will leave it here for now. Thank you. If there are any further questions, I'm happy to shed more light on it.
Thank you, Hussein. Our next question, I'd like to put it to Yerlan. Kazakhstan has implemented a taxonomy on green projects. Would be interesting to hear EBRD's view on that, and if it offers some business opportunities for companies. I mean, obviously, Konstantin, Sebastian, maybe you can pitch in as well here.
Absolutely, because the green taxonomy covers all sectors, the whole economy. And from that perspective, I think that the fact that Kazakhstan has approved its own green taxonomy, it's a step forward. Definitely, there is an area for development. However, it's a good step forward in order to fix and outline the general framework of Kazakhstan, where they're moving and how they want to achieve, with the understanding that they want to achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. This is the most important. At the same time, what kind of opportunities it creates? I think that here it is important to note, and I think that we're all on the same page, that the Austrian companies, they have really good experience and expertise in energy efficiency. And from that perspective, energy efficiency of buildings, energy efficiency, I mean, that's at the industrial plants and enterprises, energy audits, etc. So this is quite a big part of this work. And from that perspective, I would also want to know that in Kazakhstan, the new environmental code was approved earlier last year, and which also sets certain benchmarks in terms of the new projects. They should also meet the BET, best available techniques requirements, etc. So from that perspective, I think that it's very important to note, and I think it creates an opportunity for knowledgeable and experienced companies in order to come here to share their experience, and also definitely to implement, providing this the most efficient equipment and technologies here on the market. I will stop here and may expand further if our colleagues can add.
Sorry, Aymana, you're on mute.
You're muted.
Yeah.
Apologies. If no questions from, if no comments from other colleagues from other sectors, I'll move on to the next question. As an international consortium is actually running an EU-funded project in which a company is developing SCP consulting cells in Uzbekistan and Tajikistan for agri-food and other sectors. We have been developing a one-year consulting, coaching, and training program on resource and energy efficiency for SME and agri-food, or even other sectors, which can also be copied to other Central Asian countries. To make the program affordable to SMEs, it would require funding support to SMEs. Are such programs a focus from the EBRD to fund SMEs to attend this program? We don't have SME specialists, but perhaps Hussein and Andrei can maybe share a few words.
We do have a wide SME program in Kazakhstan and in actually Central Asia as a whole. The SME advisory program is done through our network of consultants, where we do provide advisory services, approximately 250 to 300 local advisory services to SMEs. And this is also supplemented or complemented by our investments through the financial institutions, where we use these financial institutions as conduits for on lending to the SMEs. And the SME, we have 4 different SME programs, or 3 different SME programs. Women in Business is one, Youth in Business is another one, and then the third one is the green energy finance under the green energy financing framework. From this point of view, we also have this advisory programs that can be utilized, and complemented by training programs, complemented by increasing financial literacy across the SMEs, etc. However, when we come to specific focus to fund the SMEs, some of these programs might have additional benefits, like that is provided to the banks, for example, similar to the credit guarantee mechanisms, the first loss guarantee mechanisms, which allows the banks to be able to provide these financings on a more affordable basis to the SMEs. However, the existing countries, for example, in Kazakhstan, there are very wide-based SME support programs that is done by the institutions in Kazakhstan. One option is DAMU-funded guarantee programs, where there are quite a bit of subsidies provided to the SMEs. And as EBRD, we do collaborate with them as well. So if you want to have further, more detailed information on the specifics of it, I'm happy to take it forward with our head of SME advisory, who's based in Almaty, who covers the entire Central Asia. We can make the connections offline.
Thank you very much. I think we may have a little bit of time for a couple of questions. There is a specific question that a company put forward with regards to Uzbekistan, and I think I would maybe share it with Sebastian, and maybe that can be taken offline. And I think we maybe have time for one more question. Is EBRD also active in oil refinery projects?
May I take this one as well? Because the last oil refinery project was actually done in Kazakhstan in 2021. In fact, it wasn't a oil refinery capacity expansion project, but it was a project specifically for the Atirau refinery to create a wastewater treatment facility for the refinery to be based in line with the
Hussein, I think your sound has deteriorated again.
Deteriorated again. Maybe I'm too far. So what I indicated is that the last refinery project we've done was a wastewater treatment modernization of the Atirau refinery project, and it was to 2021. Following that, as per our new strategies on the energy sector, we are not involved in the projects in the oil sector anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this is probably it for today. So I'd like to thank our panelists for joining us today. And I'd like to thank Szilard and Isabel and Eva for their support to run this webinar. And now let me hand over to Isabel for the concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Aymana. And yes, before I come to my closing remarks, I would like to use the opportunity to announce 2 upcoming events. First up is our webinar on the European Investment Bank on May 15th, We will be looking at the bank and how it operates and also the financial products it offers and why this might be of interest to Austrian companies. I've included the link, so if you're interested, so please just, you will find more information under the link. And of course, the EBRD annual meeting and business forum, it was mentioned today already, but also from my side, have a look at the program. It's really interesting and very, very dense. And apart, of course, from the panels and the inputs, you will have also the opportunity to network. So I think this is a good opportunity for those that are interested in the countries of operation of the EBRD. And now, before coming really to my final words, I would like to express my thanks to all of the speakers that joined us today. Thank you for your time. I know it's not easy to find a date that all of you have time. So this is always one of the challenges. So thank you so much for giving your insights today. Big thanks also to Aymana for moderating, same as last time. Great for you to always join. And also, I would like to give a shout out to Szilard Farkazdi, who is my counterpart at the EBRD, with whom I've been organizing this series on the EBRD. Thank you, Szilard. It's always a pleasure working with you. And yes, I would like to stay in touch. And I would also like to mention, please do not forget that we, meaning the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber, we have an office in Almaty. So my colleague Clemens Machal and his team is in charge.
We are neighbors in Almaty. Yes.
Oh, okay.
We are in the same building.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay, I'll ask Clemens about it. But yes, to our companies, please don't forget that we have a team on the ground that is in charge of Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, but also of the Kyrgyz Republic and Tajikistan. So if you have questions on the market, inquiries, please direct them to Clemens Machal and his team. They will be very happy to help you, to assist you with your endeavors in all of these markets. And of course, also a big thank you to all of our participants today. I hope that you leave the webinar with some takeaways. And yes, that would be it from my side. If you have any questions, you will also find my contact details. And again, thank you from my side. Take care and see you next time.